15 laps the distance for the 750s, 2.17 miles. Riders set off now for the warm-up lap, having completed the sighting. They've had their customary look round the circuit. The warm-up lap now to get the bikes, tyres into working temperature. Alongside me, as always, we missed him at Brands Hatch, Steve Parish, former British champion. Steve, Cadwell Park, the conditions are good and the times are close.
They certainly are, and it is nice to see the conditions good. A lot of the teams were ready with their wet and intermediate tyres earlier on as we had some showers and the clouds came over, but it's cleared now, and it most certainly will be a dry race. And it's the last thing you need around this circuit is rainy conditions, because they can be very changeable, with trees overhanging certain parts of the circuit can make it very, very greasy and very slippery. But the narrow way to warm up these big slick tyres, that's tyres with no tread on whatsoever, and they just get the heat into the tyres by powering them around the corners.
Well, I'm just looking across the front row, Steve, and there's a variety of machinery. A couple of Yamahas, the Kawasaki, and the Honda, of course, of Fogarty's. Anything to choose in speed between any of those makes?
Well, Rob McElnea's Loctite Yamaha is a very fast machine, and also is Carl Fogarty's. I think it will be between those two, personally. Rob's taken the pole position, but that's put him on the outside of the grid, so there's a possibility that someone could sneak through on the first corner. That we'll have to see, and it will depend on the start. But I think it's going to be between those two.
Well, number 10, Roger Burnett, they're out having a fairly rapid warm-up lap, but we do emphasise this is the warm-up lap. And what of Haslam down there on the fourth row? The Norton obviously not running properly, and this is Haslam's first time here in finals.
Yeah, it's a problem for Ron. Even if they have cured the problem, which I hope for their sake they have, he's going to struggle a little bit in the early stages to get past the traffic in front of him, because if they've cured it, he'll be lapping quicker than some of the people, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to pass them that easily. The Norton does have a fair amount of straight line speed, so he should be able to hit past one or two in the early stages, but once he gets up to the third, fourth positions, then it's going to take long before him to pass by.
Would the fact that he's not been here for a number of years have any bearing?
Well, I guess they've Nortons have been here testing. They were testing here on Friday, I know, and also with the qualification Saturday. I don't think that's a major problem for him, because he used to ride here. This was his local circuit. He knew the circuit better than anyone, so I think the refresher he had here on Friday testing will have put him back into pretty good stead for the day.
36 riders will line up. The 15 lapper, there's number 20, Ron Haslam, 35 years of age, last Saturday. So not quite a birthday celebration for Haslam, but he'll be hoping to do a good deal better than his fourth row qualifying place. First leg of the 750s then, round 4. We have two 750 races at every Super Cup round, and out in front, Haslam on 101. Quite a healthy cushion from Rob McElnea. Stringer, McKenzie sitting there in fourth, but won't be contesting any more rounds, so he can only drop further down. Nation and Morrison, Mike Edwards, joint on 43. Across the front row, in pole position, just half a second quicker than Fogarty, Rob McElnea, then Carl Fogarty, Brian Morrison from Kirkcaldy, John Reynolds and Ray Stringer from Nuneaton. The 750s then, 15 laps ahead of them, and a very tricky start from Carl Fogarty, who scythed right across the front row, from the right-hand side across to the left. Steve, not quite sure the reason for that, but was that wheel spin possible?
He did have a certain amount of wheel spin. You're talking of 140 brake horsepower being produced by these machines, but he did just as I thought, and somebody nipped through. Rob was on the pole position, but he was on the outside line. It enabled someone just to nip up the inside, which he's done, but I don't think that would be bothering Rob too much at this stage. We'll let the race get settled down. As I say that, he nips through on the inside, so that's proved me wrong. So he's determined to go for it from word go.
Okay then, exiting Chris Curve on lap 1. Rob McElnea, the Burley Humbersider, out in front, riding number 8. Then it's Carl Fogarty from Blackburn on the Honda. So we have 3 different makes of machinery in the top 3. In fact, we have 4 different makes, because Jamie Whitham, number 5, has slotted into 4th place on the Suzuki. Yamaha leads, Honda in 2nd, Kawasaki in 3rd, Suzuki in 4th. Then it's Ray Stringer, number 17. Then it's the Norton of Haslam. So a real variety of machinery as they crest the mountain on lap 1.
That was an incredible start by Jamie Whitham off the 2nd row. He's slotted in there into 4th place, and I think he'll be sticking there. He's right close behind John Reynolds, and he'll take a bit of shaking off.
a good crowd here at Cadwell. The 750s always deliver the goods. A very, very hard-fought class, very spectacular. At the end of lap 1 then, head down for Rob McElnea. Then it's Fogarty. Over the line they go. Stringer well tucked in. Haslam motoring. Then behind Haslam, it's Matt Llewellyn in your picture now. Llewellyn on the yellow bike with the black and pink leathers, and I understand with a borrowed engine from the Loctite Yamaha team.
That's right, Matt had some problems at Brands Hatch 2 weeks ago, and so we've ended up lending him an engine for this meeting. He's a great young rider, and I think he's got a big future in front of him.
27 out of it, Graham Ward from Batley. So number 27 parked up. It's Trevor Nation on the Norton, hard in the wheel tracks. So Nation has got his Norton up past Haslam. Number 3, Trevor Nation, formerly from Salisbury, has moved to Hinckley in Leicestershire, is right in there behind Jamie Whitham on the Norton. So then it's Llewellyn. Number 15, Matt Llewellyn. But in your picture, number 3, Trevor Nation. Number 2, closing on Llewellyn, Brian Morrison. No surprises so far, Steve, but they're certainly stringing out. And what a great start, as you say, by Jamie Whitham.
Yeah, great start by Jamie. Rob has now extended his lead a little bit. He's a second and a half in front, so he's trying to put the pressure on at an early stage and break away. He'll be very, very keen to get away and to win this race and get as many people between him and Ron Haslam, because that's going to close the points down, and he needs for Ron to have a bit of a poor result to get that gap down closer.
The other Norton of Haslam is right in there as well, so the Norton's very much in the frame, but Reynolds and Fogarty are locked in a real scrap. Ian Simpson from Dalbeattie, number 7. Right with him, number 24, that's Dean Ashton, the British aerospace fitter from Hull. Ashton, number 24. Then it's Ian Simpson, number 7. So pretty frantic activity further down the order. Number 33, Tim Bourne from Ashford. John Reynolds, very able teammate, Tim Bourne, drafted into the Team Green Kawasaki camp at the beginning of the 91 season. But this is the battle now for second place. Number 9, Carl Fogarty, leads John Reynolds, but only just out of Chris Curve, heading down towards the gooseneck, flicking it through. McElnea there has scorched round. They're at the gooseneck now. The left-hander of Mansfield awaits them. Fogarty, I seem to remember Fogarty plummeting down here in the wet at Cadwell, locking up his front brake and nearly scooping up Trevor Nation at the previous round. Hopefully not to be repeated here. They're at the bottom of the mountain. McElnea is stretching out that gap, and it's something a little over half a second at the moment, but still a long way to go.
And a real battle going on here. Rob McElnea has now lapped the circuit under the lap record time, so he is now the new lap record holder here at Cadwell Park. And he's storming away from these two, battling it out. For Carl Fogarty, he'll have to be riding a little defensively here, because John Reynolds is having a look either side of him, which won't necessarily make them go any faster. In fact, it could slow them, which would be ideal for Rob to extend his lead.
Number 9 then, Carl Fogarty, 24 years of age. Son of George Fogarty himself, no mean motorcycle racer over the years. Carl put his toe in the water at Grand Prix racing, but is very, very much at home on the short circuits and on the true roads. Fogarty then just leading Reynolds. Their battle tending to get in each other's way, I think, and leaving McElnea the opportunity just to stretch that gap even further. Steve, McElnea is a big man. Cadwell is twisty, bumpy, size, weight. Any advantage here?
No, I don't think it is at all. In fact, Rob would dearly like to be a smaller person, because it would make his motorcycle go faster. So that's all. We have a faller here, number 20, Ron Haslam, has had a tumble. That's bad luck for the Norton camp, because Ron needed those points.
That's the championship leader, Ron Haslam, out of round 4. And there's Haslam walking away, just being consoled by one or two of the marshals. He won't be happy about that, because what that means is 20 points will go to the runner-up at the moment in the championship. This is the battle, however, for second place. John Reynolds, number 6, is in third. Carl Fogarty, number 9, is in second. Runner-up in the Formula 1 TT in the Isle of Man, Fogarty. His particular riding style lends itself very well to the street circuits in Northern Ireland and the Isle of Man. But as I say, equally at home on the short circuits, and has put in some good rides for the Honda team.
John Reynolds now will be watching Carl Fogarty very, very closely just to see if he can make any ground up, possibly not making the move at this stage because he'll wait until the race draws on a bit further, but he's eyeing Carl Fogarty up at the moment. I think he can go a bit faster.
Reynolds then rated by just about everyone here as a highly professional, scientific rider, very, very talented. And would you believe the first time he ever raced a motorcycle in anger in road racing was 1987 as he sweeps round the outside, but no, at the gooseneck. Fogarty had the inside line, down towards Mansfield still. So this is the scrap now for second and third place. Nation on the other Norton is still holding 6th place. Teammate Ron Haslam having departed the race on lap 3 to score no points. And this is going to be a very interesting equation.
Well, that was a very brave-looking manoeuvre from John Reynolds then. It didn't work, and I didn't think it would, but he had a look, and he's probably just trying to pressurise Carl Fogarty into maybe making a mistake, because if you can keep hassling someone, they maybe can run wide and give him a chance to nip through. But I don't think he'll ever pass at the gooseneck there. He'll have to do it more likely at the end of the start and finish straight or at the end of the main straight.
Out of barn, over the start-finish line again. Carl Fogarty, there's John Reynolds, number 6. So the Team Green man in 3rd place. Ray Stringer in Jamie Whitham, I beg your pardon, in 4th. Then it's Ray Stringer. The rest of the field led by Trevor Nation come thundering through. Matt Llewellyn, Tim Bourne, and there's Ray Stringer. 5th place man Ray Stringer has abandoned the Yamaha and his race is over. So it's all happening here at Cadwell. Unusual, Steve, for there to be tumbles like this when the conditions are dry.
Yeah, it is, but the speeds are very fast. So Rob McElnea is under the lap record times, and if he's going that fast, everyone else is trying to keep up with him. So they're really pushing on, but there is certainly no problem with the circuit. The conditions are perfect, and it's proven by the times that they're doing. But Carl Fogarty, you see, nipping through the gooseneck again. John Reynolds decided not to try and pass him at this point. I think he'll be waiting, as I said earlier, at the end of the straight would be the most favourite point to pass.
Well, I'm looking at the computer above us, which indicates Stringer still listed, of course, but what it does mean is that Trevor Nation now moves up into 4th place. Matt Llewellyn goes up into 5th, but this man, number 9, Carl Fogarty, is in 2nd, and John Reynolds, with a massive wheelie on the Kawasaki, is 3rd. Heeling it over, knees scraping the curb, just skimming the surface through Hall Bends down towards the hairpin, laying it into the hairpin, and ahead of them, Barn Corner, probably one of the most difficult. This has accounted for quite a few of the riders during qualifying and, in fact, racing. It's a tricky, adverse camber, no runoffs, and we were talking earlier, Steve, I gather there's some water there somewhere.
There is. Behind that innocent-looking hedge is a pond, so if you go through there and have any mistake, you could end up getting very, very wet, but it's probably the softest place you could want to land on.
Almost half distance then, on lap 7. A look over the left shoulder. Fogarty wondered just where the green Kawasaki was, but it's some 20 yards adrift now. Fogarty has piled on the coals fractionally to drag himself away, but he'll have to drag himself a lot further to get anywhere near the flying Rob McElnea, who's got that Yamaha out in front.
Carl has broken the toe now from John Reynolds, so he's putting the pressure on. Rob McElnea is still lapping the fastest at the moment. He's now nearly a second under the lap record, but the gap hasn't changed a great deal. Carl Fogarty's keeping the pressure up.
The wise head of John Reynolds there, holding station in 3rd place on the Kawasaki. Just looking for Fogarty to make a slip, leave a wide gap that he can dive through. Or maybe not even a wide gap, a small one will do, thinks John Reynolds. Just leave the door open and I'll go for it. But he's not really close enough to capitalise on any misfortune that would befall Fogarty at the moment. He's a little bit adrift. He needs to be tacked on the back end of the Silkaleen Honda if he's able to gain any advantage from a slip and the black lines on the track there, Steve. Power sliding out, Fogarty, a rear wheel drift.
Fogarty's trying very, very hard now, and as you saw as he exited Barn Corner there with a big black stripe left from his rear tyre.
Just look at the rest of the field stringing out. And this is the scrap now, headed by Nation Llewellyn. Number 7 there is Ian Simpson. So Simpson well in the action here. Father Bill has put the bike together very, very well. Ian Simpson in the yellow helmet. There's Trevor Nation, though. the only surviving Norton in this race. A nation sitting in 5th place in the championship. And Matt Llewellyn has gone through, and right with them now, tacked on the back is Ian Simpson. So Llewellyn with a Yamaha engine borrowed from the Loctite Yamaha team, apparently, Steve, going very well indeed.
Yeah, I think we maybe struggled to get that one back because it looked to be faster than the Norton down the straightaway. So maybe Nation has a problem. The Norton is renowned for having very good straight line speed and top speed, and it doesn't look to be having that today. So that's possibly the reason they were back further down on the grid here today.
Matt Llewellyn then, from Glenfield in Leicester, slips through on the inside of the Norton and is now leading this bunch quite successfully. He's got to break the toe, shake them off if he can. Through Hall Bends, Tim Bourne, number 28 there as well. That's Mike Edwards from Wigan. Mike Edwards, who runs 600s, 400 Supersport, also no mean competitor on the 750, vastly experienced. But Matt Llewellyn. Llewellyn's aims for 1991 to finish in the top 3 of the British Championship, he says, and the TT Superbike Championship.
It just shows how he was being held up. He's now managed to break away from this group. He's got in front of Trevor Nation. He's pulling away very nicely. The machine's prepared by Athletic Motorcycles. Steve Linsdale there does a great job and puts a good bike together, and Matt Llewellyn's proving that he can ride it very, very well.
He's 23 years of age, Llewellyn, and number 7 now, Ian Simpson from Dalbeattie, closing on the back of Nation on the Norton. Francis Neal Racing assists Simpson, number 7. Reynolds now is piling on the coals and has gone round 1:30.67. That equals the pole position time set by McElnea. So Reynolds has left something in his back pocket for later in the race and is now producing it. But this is the battle for the lower places. I say the lower places for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. That's really what this is all about. In 5th place, then it's Llewellyn. Fighting up through a relatively new name, Andy Ward from Selby on a Yamaha number 16 is there behind Nation, knocking at the door, having got past Ian Simpson. Just looking at them, Steve, there don't appear to be too many overtaking moves, and there only appears to be one racing line. Is that really the case?
Well, there is only really one good racing line around Cadwell Park. It's a relatively narrow circuit, but the race is, we're on lap 10 out of 15 laps, so there's still plenty of time to be going on. I think this group here will be saving themselves for the last couple of laps. I can see Trevor Nation being gobbled up a little bit more because they're bunched in very closely behind him, and he doesn't seem to have the straight line speed to pull away from them a great deal on this fast straight here. Reaches speeds of 165 miles an hour at that point.
Well, as Nation soldiers on, then having broken away a bit, a real determined challenge there from number 7, Ian Simpson, to get himself back in front of Graham Ward. Andy Ward, I beg your pardon, number 16. But Simpson now is there, right, lining up the Norton. Started his racing at the age of 16, Ian Simpson. It's number 7 we're talking about. Father Bill puts the bike together for him at meetings. Had a spell in the Suzuki camp with Mick Grant and Jamie Whitham as teammate. But now very much doing his own thing and has matured considerably, yet still only 21, Ian Simpson. Is there an age, Steve, at which a national motorcycle road racer would peak, or an age at which they're most effective?
I don't think there is. I think it all depends on how long you've been doing it and how hungry you are to go out there and win. So if you start at 20 years old, then you probably are in the chance of winning at 26, 27, or if you start at 17 or 16 years old, as some of the Americans do, then you peak out and you become your best at maybe 22. I think it really depends on how long you've been doing it, how much experience you've got, and how much, obviously, natural ability you have.
Matt Llewellyn, number 15, is getting away now. Number 24 in your picture there, Dean Ashton again from Hull, who's had a fairly miserable start to the 1991 season, but seems to be getting it together halfway through the year. We are back with number 8, the race leader, Rob McElnea, and he hasn't really, in fact, the gap is now just a little bit narrower than it was before. They've got McElnea well and truly in sight. Fogarty still there in second, but they're closing on Rob Mack.
Yeah, they are. Whether or not Rob McElnea's slackened the pace off, we have 4 laps to go, so Rob's maybe easing it, but he hasn't got to ease it too much. Interestingly, the 3 leaders that we have, Rob McElnea's on Dunlop tyres, Carl Fogarty on Michelin, and John Reynolds on Pirelli. So we have the 3 tyre manufacturers that are mainly involved in this series battling away for the lead also.
A lot more at stake then than prestige, money and points. The tyre companies too waging war here at Cadwell Park. 3 different makes of bike, 3 different makes of tyre, and 3 vastly contrasting riding styles. The very steady, dependable style of race leader, the very aggressive, determined, cut and thrust action of Carl Fogarty, and the composed, calm, sensible riding of John Reynolds, who always looks to me as though he's out for a Sunday afternoon ride. Yeah,
he does. He's a very steady rider and very mature for his age. Rob McElnea had some problems at the last round at Brands Hatch. He suffers sometimes from tendinitis. It's when the muscles pump up in your arms bigger than they should do, and it does cause a problem with heavy braking. Braking down into this corner here, for example, Mansfield, it's like doing a handstand as you brake into there. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. The whole weight of your body goes through your arms as you squeeze the front brake, and the machine tries to revolve around the front wheel under heavy braking.
The top 6. Nation on the Norton still holding 6th. Llewellyn, Brian Morrison having a very lonely 4th ride, but a good ride. This is the race leader, however, number 8, Rob McElnea, who will be getting pit signals that the dueling pair of Carl Fogarty, number 9, and this man, number 6, John Reynolds, are closing. The gap now almost under 2 seconds. They're exiting Barn again. Over the line goes McElnea, and over the line goes Fogarty and Reynolds up towards Coppice, the left-hander, where Reynolds powers the Kawasaki up to the right-hander of Charlie's and then flat on the tank. What sort of speed down Park Straight, Steve?
Down Park Straight, the Yamaha is geared for 165 miles an hour, and we have actually a prevailing wind today, so it will be easily doing that. So it's extremely fast on a relatively short part of the circuit.
And certainly from that angle, it doesn't appear to be much of a straight. It's a gradual curve pretty well all up the climb.
Yeah, there's a dip in the middle of it. You get a run down the hill, and then once you've crested that rise at the end of the straight, it's very hard on the brakes into second gear for the park corner.
The gooseneck then. Carl Fogarty, number 9. This is the race leader, 8, Rob McElnea. John Reynolds, number 6, doing his utmost to get the Team Green Kawasaki out in front. Reynolds is in fact in 8th place in the championship coming into this round 4, so he needs the points. 20 points are there for the taking for the winner of this race, 17 for second, 15 for third, and a not inconsiderable amount of prize money as well. In fact, a mere £500 will go to Rob McElnea. How important is the money to the riders?
Well, very much so. I mean, it really is their wages, and it's very important for them to win that prize money. But more importantly is the prestige of winning the race, and more importantly than that is winning the championship. It's very important to the manufacturers. That's why it's so well contested at the moment by all the manufacturers. Vitally important to pick up the British Championship.
Well, 20 points is where Rob McElnea is sitting at the moment. This is the second place man, still Carl Fogarty, with an almighty weave on the RC30 Honda. Still head down in second place, but I was about to say the race leader, should he pick up his 20 points, that will move him on to 96, and the faller there, but up on his feet, Dean Ashton from Hull. So Dean Ashton is off, puts his leg over the safety wall, and Ashton was sitting very nicely in 10th place behind the Norton of Nation, who's now slipping back down the order.
Carl Fogarty now does have the advantage of being able to see Rob McElnea, so it gives him added incentive to push on, but back markers are coming into it. You saw then Rob McElnea just nip past the back marker, which was very nice for him. He was able to do it before the twisty section as they come up the mountain there. That's going to cause Carl Fogarty even more problems, because he'll arrive upon the back marker at the all bends, I think.
We were talking just as Rob McElnea gets among the tail enders, we were just talking briefly about tyres and the cost, for your information, of a rear tyre in this sort of category, something in the region of £80. And really, Steve, it's only good for one race.
Yeah, you could continue to use it for a second race, but it wouldn't have the performance that a new tyre has. All these competitors, or in fact, most of the first 3 or 4 rows will all have started with new front and rear tyres, because the performance, you have to have the best if you're going to win. They're now on the last lap, and it does look that Carl Fogarty is going to have to really go some to close in on Rob McElnea at this late stage.
A nice smooth ride by number 6, John Reynolds then. A great start, but was unable to do anything, despite having a couple of serious looks at Carl Fogarty, was unable to do anything really about improving on that. Starting from the front row, 4th fastest qualifier. I suppose, realistically, Reynolds couldn't have hoped to do any more, because the times tell the story, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And John's, as I say, he doesn't do anything foolish. He just gradually gets better and better week by week, and he's a force to be reckoned without a doubt in this country.
John Reynolds then, tail enders ahead of him. Carl Fogarty already past the tail ender, and that's Dave Redgate. Carl Fogarty cresting the mountain. Up pops the front wheel, but only just. Race leader Rob McElnea down at the hairpin. Just a little short dash now towards Barn. Round Barn, the adverse right-hander. Exiting, the checkered flag is in sight. It's being readied for the Humbersider, or the Loctite Yamaha. Rob McElnea then, clenched fist in the air. That'll move him, if my sums are correct, to within 5 points of championship leader Ron Haslam, who will have to do something a bit more spectacular in leg 2. A well-fought second place for Carl Fogarty. Number 40, a tail ender, Ian Green, on the Delta Dispatch machine. There's Brian Morrison grabbing 4th. A very good and steady ride by Morrison. The rest of the field coming over. Matt Llewellyn, a good long way adrift. I'm a little bit surprised that they got that strung out. Nation coming over in what appears to be 9th place. We'll confirm that result as soon as we can. No mistaking the race winner, however, number 8, Rob McElnea. There it is, 3 seconds up on Fogarty. Reynolds, Morrison, Mike Edwards from Wigan. Matt Llewellyn was 6th, but a long way adrift. The 750 standings then, the gap has closed dramatically, with McElnea just 5 points adrift of series leader Haslam. Race stringer, McKenzie won't improve on 61. Morrison and Mike Edwards.
And we'll have more from that Cadwell meeting on Saturday, August the 3rd, and that's the day before our live transmission of the British Motorcycle Grand Prix, which comes...
Now that's exactly what we're going to do. Round 4 of the 750s coming up. 2 legs, of course. We're going to join the first leg at the restart. Regrettably, the race had been stopped after an injury to one of the riders. The venue is Cadwell Park. Our commentators are Steve Parrish and Barry Nutley.
The restart of the 750 race will be over a further 7 laps, so that will give us the full 15-lap distance, and that's how they finished up at the stoppage. Reynolds and Morrison out in front from McElnea, Whitham, Rymer. Those top 5 all line up on the front row. The news about the injured rider, number 52, Chris Hodgson from Chesterfield, has been taken away to hospital for treatment to a broken leg. So it looked to be a lot more serious than it was. Obviously it's serious for him, but could have been a lot worse. Anyway, 7 laps then ahead of them for the restart, the red flag and the red light. When that goes to green, and watch Jamie Whitham, number 5 on the Suzuki from the front row this time, who fairly bulleted away into 3rd place. Thought it was 2nd, it was 3rd, because Morrison went to the front. Number 6, Brian Morrison, leads again. And his teammate, John Reynolds, again is boxed in down there in 4th place. Jamie Whitham on the Team Grant Suzuki number 5 had a great start into 3rd, but Rob McElnea, reigning champion, who was having a tremendous ride in part 1 of this race, has had an equally good start into 2nd place. Morrison then leads McElnea. Also, Mark Palmer on the Roton, riding number 46, had a good start from the 2nd row. The 2 Nortons are well placed in there in 5th and 6th places. So Morrison, number 6, leads. McElnea, number 1, in 2nd. Then it's Jamie Whitham. Then it's John Reynolds. And then closely in pursuit, the 2 Nortons, numbers 23, Terry Rymer, and 20, Robert Dunlop, respectively. Reynolds then already past the Suzuki of Jamie Whitham up to third place. Kawasaki leads, Yamaha leads Kawasaki. Well, a fairly incident-packed first half, Steve. Is this going to be just as quick in the second bit?
Well, it is, but John Reynolds has the work all to do again. He's got to pass Rob McElnea, so he actually finished up half a second in front of Brian Morrison, so he needs to be very close behind Brian Morrison to take the overall win of this leg. So he's got work to do. I think he can pass Rob McElnea, albeit we only have 6 laps remaining, so it's a very short race. So he hasn't got to hang around too long, and then once he's passed Rob McElnea, he's then got to close on Brian Morrison. He doesn't necessarily have to be past Brian Morrison. Following him closely within 20 or 30 metres would give him the overall win.
Now, watch this. The speed of the Kawasaki. Is it going to go for it? It's alongside and rockets through on the inside. So Reynolds has gone past McElnea, up into second place. And as Steve Parrish said, he now has to set about hanging on to the shirt tails, or rather getting past Brian Morrison, his teammate number 6, who's in front. So the captions as they appear will give the aggregate position, so it is the actual position that you are looking at. No, that's Jamie Whitham. That's Whitham on the grass. Jamie Whitham hard into the tyre wall, but he's up on his feet and no doubt kicking himself, leaving the bike there. He was lucky to get away with that one.
He was. Fortunately, he hit the tyre wall the full length of his body, so it didn't do him too much damage. But we heard from Jamie Whitham, he gives it his best, and he certainly gave it his best there, but he just couldn't. It was on the gooseneck. It's an 80-mile-an-hour corner. He just got on the grass, nothing he could do, and he did the best thing. He laid the bike down. Here it comes now. He's coming to the corner. He's got it wrong before he gets there. He gets on the grass. He can see he's going towards the wall, so he lays the bike down now, gets off of it. It's the only thing to do. Unfortunately, as you saw, he hit the tyre wall very flatly, and so he didn't go in there feet first and do any serious damage.
Well, a fairly heart-stopping moment for young Jamie Whitham there, and equally so for us here at the commentary point. These two Kawasaki teamsters are scrapping out tooth and nail, and that was a carbon copy passing manoeuvre. That's exactly how John Reynolds took Brian Morrison in the first encounter, and in this, the second half of the race, Reynolds is now out in front again, but equally so, Rob McElnea is just as quick. Terry Rymer's now been elevated to 4th place, so number 23, the all-black Norton and all-black clad Terry Rymer in 4th place. Then Robert Dunlop and number 46, Mark Farmer from Crawley on the other Roton. So there you have 3 rotary engine machines in the bottom 6. So Mark Farmer has now gone ahead. So Mark Farmer, the man in the front of your shot now riding number 46, has gone up into 5th place ahead of Robert Dunlop. So this young man really coming to terms with this rotary engine machine and justifying the commitment and the faith that Brian Crichton has put in him riding it. An astonishing performance.
Yeah, terrific performance. A lot of people said that the Roton doesn't work. It has the old type twin shock absorbers as opposed to the monoshock single shock suspension system. Everyone said it doesn't work, but Mark Farmer's doing a great job on it here this afternoon. Number 46, Mark Farmer, he's really pushing hard.
There's been a degree of collaboration between the Norton concern and Brian Crichton, who was the original Norton technical development man, in fact, who built the number 46 bike. They have been very, very useful towards Brian Crichton, and in fact have loaned him some very special engine parts, and that's resulted in suddenly the blue Roton almost being on par, and in fact certainly appearing to be almost a match for the factory Nortons on this occasion, definitely. And Mark Farmer now is in 5th place and has got Terry Rymer in his sights.
Yeah, he has. We're now looking at number 23, Terry Rymer, who is back on the pace. But John Reynolds has now gone round in a 1:29.23. He's virtually equalled the lap record once again, so he's straight back on the pace. It's quite incredible. I'm surprised that Brian Morrison led him through that last time. I mean, it was a carbon copy of the first half of the race, and at the same spot, John Reynolds is so fast as they go up through Charlie's corner there. He really is riding superbly.
Further down the order then, there's a battle between David Jeffries, number 35, number 30 there also very much in the frame, and number 10, that's Jeremy McWilliams. So Sean Emmett, number 30, the man who's riding Dean Ashton's bike, and Sean Emmett very, very capable on the 600cc, and in fact leading the 600 Super Sports class, definitely. Sean, well, Ian Simpson was leading the class until injured himself in practice here. Sean Emmett in with a chance now of winning the championship. has turned to the 750 midway through the season, had a brilliant ride at Mallory Park in the 750, and is going well here ahead of Jeremy McWilliams, who's riding the Oxford Products Alec Hammond bike, which Trevor Nation started to ride at the beginning of the season. The number 10 Ducati, now ridden by Jeremy McWilliams, is tucked in the back of Sean Emmett, but the lap record, the quickest man around here, without a doubt at all, John Reynolds on the Kawasaki.
Yeah, John Reynolds just obliterating the lap record, but Sean Emmett going extremely well on the 750. And I have to say that Jeremy McWilliams on the ex-Trevor Nation Ducati rides in the 250 class, jumps off of a small, tiny, lightweight 250 onto the big 750 Ducati here, and really doing a great job. I think he's a man to be watching on the big 750s.
David Jeffries, number 35, young David Jeffries, having his first 750cc season, is the man at the tail end of this little trio. And all these riders are on 750s really for the first time in this 1992 season, or rather it's their first season on 750s, and they're going really well indeed. They are currently lying in 7th, 8th and 9th places respectively. So the 7th place man, number 30, Sean Emmett, leading Jeremy McWilliams. Caller there, number 49, out of the running, and that's Stuart Nicholson from North Yorkshire, North Allerton in fact. But Sean Emmett, the motorcycle journalist from Camberley in Surrey, just 22 years of age, number 30, is leading the big beefy V-twin Ducati.
Across, and we're back to John Reynolds, number 3, who is just out in his own 29.1 minute, 29.43, well in with the lap records here at the moment. Lap 14 of 15 laps, and look at the distance he's pulled out on Brian Morrison. He's now 3.34 seconds in front. He is just cruising. At the moment, this man can't do a thing wrong.
This is round 4 of the Super Cup Championship, and of the last 6 races, John Reynolds has won 4. No score at all at Donington. He broke down and fell off respectively in the 2 legs, but since then has never looked back, taking a maximum from each of the remaining 4 races. And Mark Farmer, number 46 on the Roton, stretching out ahead of Robert Dunlop, number 20 on the second of the 2 Nortons. Then comes the charging bunch with Sean Emmett, number 30, ahead of Jeremy McWilliams, who's growing in stature on the Italian V-twin Ducati. And of course, the Ducati does have an awful lot of punch, and there are limits within the class. It's allowed to be a lighter machine, is that right?
Well, in Superbike, in the Super Cup series here, there is no weight restriction so much, but in World Superbike, the twin-cylinder Ducati can not only be lighter, it can have more capacity. It can run up to 1000cc, which this one we're seeing here today, number 10, Jeremy McWilliams, is an 888 machine, so it's a much bigger engine, but because it's twin-cylinder, that's allowed, as opposed to the 4-cylinder Japanese. So we're now on the last lap. John Reynolds, number 3, he's away. The man is just riding so well. The bike is working so well. There can't be a good bike and a bad rider, and a bad rider and a good bike. It has to be the combination, and we're looking at it. Number 3, John Reynolds.
Well, this will move John Reynolds, who currently sits on 80 points. This will move him on to 100. Terry Rymer, meanwhile, in the 4th place, will inherit 13 points. He is currently sitting on 100, so he will move on to 113. So it's certainly going to go down to the next race, and maybe even one more before John Reynolds can actually say that the championship is his, because Terry Rymer, number 23 on the Norton, is just chipping away, scoring the points, having had a double maximum in the opening round at Donington, and is not going to surrender that easily to this man Reynolds, number 3. Although I have to say the Kawasaki looks particularly devastating, beautifully turned out. The whole crew here at Cadwell have got their act together in a very professional manner indeed. And Colin Wright, the team manager, standing trackside, rubbing his hands with glee as the checkered flag goes out for John Reynolds. Being waved as well for teammate Brian Morrison goes over the line. Then it's Rob McElnea, and 4th place goes to Terry Rymer, who retains the championship lead. 5th place to Mark Farmer, but John Reynolds, number 3, a very worthy winner here at Cadwell. There it is then. On aggregate, Reynolds from Morrison, Rob McElnea, a great ride for the Yamaha man, Terry Rymer, Farmer and Dunlop, those rotary engines were very quick here. The stage is set for the second 750cc confrontation here at Cadwell, and it promises to be something very special indeed, with Terry Rymer anxious to defend that slender margin over the two Kawasaki men. Teammate Robert Dunlop, McElnea, and Jamie Whitham, who's rebuilt his bike after a pretty big prang, is still there. And much to our surprise, Whitham is back on the second row, but Reynolds still in pole. Morrison, McElnea, and the two Norton men, Rymer and Dunlop, complete the front row. It is, in fact, a depleted lineup because there are one or two non-starters, but an absolutely cracking start from the second row by the number 5 Suzuki of Jamie Whitham, who scythes round the outside at Coppice and slots into third place behind Terry Rymer. So Jamie Whitham, number 5, having survived that prang. The bike was absolutely smashed to bits and pieces, and much to our amazement, James Whitham turned up on the line. That's the only bike they've got. And Steve, a lot of work will have gone into the rebuilding of that.
Yeah, there certainly will. Butch, the mechanic, will have been working frantically. It's not just putting all the panel work back on. You have to check to see if the chassis is straight, if the wheels are straight. And that was a very expensive crash. The bike cartwheeled and bits and pieces got busted up. So that will have been a real major change of everything, including swinging arms, forks, and everything you can think of.
Well, it doesn't seem to have dampened the ardour of Jamie Whitham, who's just slotted up into third place, splitting the two Nortons. And Robert Dunlop, number 20, challenging back on the inside as they go up towards the foot of the mountain. But Whitham going in on the brakes, and no, has to settle for fourth. Out in front, though, a really flying start. Terry Rymer in second place. In third place, it's the Norton. Then it's Jamie Whitham, number 5. Brian Morrison leads. His teammate John Reynolds, number 3, is way down in 6th place. Jamie Whitham then having a bit more of a cautious ride. I don't know if cautious is a word I can use to describe the 25-year-old flyer from Huddersfield. He and Mick Grant, the team boss, have really clicked in this 92 season. And if the Suzuki were just a little bit quicker, and that's no criticism of the mechanics or indeed the team itself, it's just that the Suzuki design is maybe just a little bit dated now.
Well, this is actually their new bike, the new water-cooled bike, and I think they're still trying to develop it. They changed the machine at the beginning of this year, and you can see Rob McElnea having a look. It's not that slow because McElnea's Yamaha was unable to pass him up the back there, but now you can see there's John Reynolds, who's scything his way through. Number 3, John Reynolds. He's just slotted up past McElnea, but McElnea's got the inside line. Yes, he's held it. John Reynolds has been pretty forceful there. Now he's got his sights set on number 5, Jamie Whitham. But John Reynolds just doesn't seem to be able to get that Kawasaki off the line. He probably doesn't need to, the speed he's lapping at, but you can see the work he's got to do to catch Brian Morrison. He's got a lot to make up.
Number 3 then in 5th place, the green Kawasaki of the man who is in 2nd place in the championship, John Reynolds, 13 points behind Terry Rymer, number 23, the first of the two black Nortons in this race as they rocket over the mountain. And number 46, Mark Farmer on the Roton, who had a very creditable 5th place in the first outing, is right there in the hunt as well. There's Jeremy McWilliams on the Alec Hammond Ducati, the Oxford Products bike, and having just climbed off a 250 from a good ride in the 250cc race, Jeremy McWilliams showing us just how versatile he is. Robert Dunlop, number 20. Then it's John Reynolds, number 3. Then Jamie Whitham from Huddersfield on the Suzuki. Hasn't dampened his ardour one bit. His flare is just as bright as it was in leg 1, leaning right off the bike and giving it 150%. Reynolds, though, in 4th place, has got Dunlop and Terry Rymer both in his sights.
Yeah, well, we saw the speed before of that Kawasaki, but now he's got the Nortons to pass. Now we're looking at number 5, Jamie Whitham, Rob McElnea, number 1, right behind him. So there's a battle going on there for 5th and 6th, but John Reynolds is going to be the man, I think, charging. Whitham's style, you can see him really hanging his body off. He gets right off the machine, trying to keep it as upright as possible to give it a bit more tyre grip. Each rider has their own style, but Whitham is quite an extrovert as far as his style's concerned.
Well, number 3, John Reynolds, it's hard to believe that he had his first race. And number 14, a retirement there.
That's Matt Llewellyn.
Matt Llewellyn then from Glenfield in Leicester. So Matt Llewellyn out of it. I was about to say that number 3, John Reynolds, had his first race here as short a time ago as 1987, and that was a vintage race on a 250cc Veloset. And I have to say how times have changed. Here we are, 1992, and Reynolds is on the crest of the wave at the pinnacle of his UK profession, and is poised, I think, Steve, maybe for venturing into World Superbike.
I think that's what his aim is. He'd dearly like to get into the World Superbike, and he should be in World Superbike. He is riding so well at the moment. The bike he rides, the Kawasaki, is probably the most competitive, and there he uses his inside tight line again, but I don't know if he's very close, and he does it just the same as he did to Brian Morrison in the first leg. He's just so quick through the Charlie's Spend there. So with the Nortons, he has to use his skill and expertise in the corners and under braking, because he doesn't have the advantage of power over the Norton, as the Norton actually is just as fast as the Kawasaki. Morrison putting in the fastest lap.
Well, that's interesting, because Brian Morrison leading the race, the number 6 rider on the other Kawasaki, teammate of this man who, and that's uncharacteristic to see John Reynolds in any sort of trouble.
Yeah, well, he's pushing hard. John realises that he's got a long way to go. Whilst Brian Morrison's out in front, he's got a clear road. He can put the fastest lap in, but I truly believe once John Reynolds gets into second spot, if he can pass Terry Rymer, then we'll start seeing the times tumble even more.
Number 5, Jamie Whitham, then slipping further down the field. Mark Farmer, number 46 on the Roton, has gone ahead of James and is in pursuit of this man, number 1, Rob McElnea, the 1991 champion. This is the duel then for second place between Terry Rymer, who's hanging on to that second place because he needs the points, and with it his championship lead, and it is all about the championship for these two men. The leader, Terry Rymer, on 113 points at this moment in time, and the man behind him has 100 points, and they are separated, if all this makes sense to you, by just 2 points in this race at this moment in time, because Rymer is in a 17-point slot for second, and Reynolds, number 3, is in a 15-point slot for third. So this is going to go all the way to Alton Park, and maybe even beyond, who knows? Yes,
to the final round at Brands Hatch. But you saw there, John Reynolds was unable to make up much time on number 23, Terry Rymer, down the straight. He's got to do it on the corners, and he'll be pushing hard as they come down through the gooseneck here. It's a very quick part of the course now. 120 miles now, breaking into third gear for the 80-mile-an-hour gooseneck. But now Reynolds has been looking at the inside line, I think, here. He'll be late on the brakes, and he's gone through. John Reynolds, number 3, nips through on the inside, a perfect manoeuvre, but that Kawasaki steer. But Terry Rymer's back on the power, and he has the line for the mountain section, so he's back through now. Reynolds will not be able to pass. Oh, and that's unbelievable. Nearly fetching them both off. That was a pretty silly move, I think, on John Reynolds' behalf. He went around the outside of Terry Rymer, nearly brought them both off, but nevertheless, they're both safely through, and Reynolds has got through into second spot, but I wouldn't be so happy with that one.
Well, dear me, we've got to settle down here, because you saw that for yourselves. Reynolds is on the outside, chops back in, Terry Rymer drifting wide, and it couldn't get much more physical than that, could it? Down went Terry Rymer's left leg to keep things all in a line round the bottom of the mountain, and he won't be too thrilled. And that again is a bit uncharacteristic of John Reynolds, who is maybe looking just a little bit desperate.
Well, I think he's desperate to win the race, which he actually doesn't need to be. He obviously wants to be in front of Terry Rymer, and as more points he can amass, the better. But he was on the outside. Terry Rymer wouldn't even have seen him there. Terry was on the line, so I would put the blame on John Reynolds, but obviously he didn't mean to do that. In motorcycle racing, you don't mean to bump into someone, because it can knock you off just as easily as knocking your opponent off.
Rob McElnea then is heading up a pretty frantic tussle between number 20, Robert Dunlop, and Mark Farmer on the Brian Crichton entered Roton, the number 46 bike. Mark Farmer, the Ulsterman, has really clicked with this bike. He put his leg across it at the tail end of last season, just for a couple of outings, then forgot all about the bike, and since then Brian Crichton has been doing other things with it, and he's had a variety of riders on board, including Tim Bourne as the official Roton rider. But in the tail end now, the autumn really, of the 1992 season, Mark Farmer was approached again to take up the cudgel and ride the Roton, and this is the man we're talking about, number 46, and he's doing an admirable job now, closing down the factory Norton of Robert Dunlop. And I think it's fair to say at this point that they do have Norton assistance in the motor on this Roton, so there is some collaboration between the two factions, and we're seeing the end result here. Very competitive rotary engine motorcycles indeed. Robert Dunlop then is looking like losing that 5th place to an extremely determined Mark Farmer. Rob McElnea, meanwhile, in 4th. The number 1 man is getting away.
Yeah, these two battling it down, but the engines are very similar, but the chassis is totally different on these two. One is made by Harris Performance and the other by Spontan Engineering. Totally different chassis, but nearly doing the same job. Robert Dunlop, a great rider, and I personally put him as a 125 rider because of his size. He's very small, and this is a big, heavy machine, a very, very fast machine for a small guy to ride hard, but he does a great job.
Well, the race having settled just a little bit here, and we can now see that Reynolds well past Terry Rymer, who is looking as though he might just be slipping back into the clutches now of a determined Rob McElnea, number 1. At the bottom of the mountain, Rob McElnea is lining up Terry Rymer. It could be that that incident with John Reynolds unsettled the 25-year-old Londoner just a little bit there, because certainly he's lost his composure, and almost certainly Rob McElnea is closing.
He is. Now, John Reynolds is the man that really is charging. He's done a 28.74, so that's way under the lap record. He's really pushing hard, obviously determined. He doesn't want to finish second to his teammate. He wants the win as well as the points. Now we have a faller out of Coppice Corner.
Well, the rider being attended to there, that's where we've had 1 or 2 incidents during the course of the afternoon, but just the yellow flag being shown, that means that the riders can race on. The race will go on. No red flag as yet being shown, although the red flag coming out down here at the finish. The red flag going out, the race being stopped. This second 750 leg, just like the first, being stopped. Restart of the second leg of the 750s, 8 laps ahead of the riders then this time, and poor old John Reynolds has it all to do again. This is how they line up, it being the places they finished in at the end of the first part. Morrison, Reynolds, Rymer, McElnea, Dunlop, and Mark Farmer will just about be on the second row. We're looking for a good performance from Mark Farmer, because as each second goes by, he's becoming quicker and quicker and quicker on the Roton. But Morrison, the man who's got some good starts, but having said that, a cracking start from John Reynolds, number 3, who made absolutely no mistake this time. Terry Rymer has gone with him on the Norton, though. Terry Rymer, number 23, slotted into second. Reynolds' teammate Morrison is in third, but putting this one to bed in the first 150 yards, unless any other misfortune befalls him, John Reynolds, number 3, gets his nose out in front. Terry Rymer, though, seems to have got second wind. The Norton was very quick there. Coming up towards Park, Terry Rymer throw on the inside. That's given John Reynolds something to think about. Almost running wide, Terry Rymer, but putting it down really clearly from the word go. The Londoner wants to win this one.
He really does, and that was a tremendous move down the inside of John Reynolds. John Reynolds being the fastest man here today. Terry's got the bit between his teeth. Reynolds looks for the inside but decides not. But in the first part of this race, these two came very close to knocking each other off. So I think maybe John Reynolds and Terry Rymer will be giving each other a little more room in this second part. That's the best start we've seen from John Reynolds all day. But remember, he has to get over 2 seconds in front of Brian Morrison to take this part of the race, this second leg. He needs to be at least 2 seconds in front of number 6, Brian Morrison.
Well, knowing Terry Rymer the way I do, and also John Reynolds, I am almost sure that they will have had quiet words with each other about the touching incident, and quite possibly an apology maybe from John as to the effect, well, I'm sorry, mate, I didn't mean to lean on you quite as much as I did. And Terry probably said something to the effect, I didn't know you were that close. But certainly there appears to be no ill feeling. The only thing it's done for Terry Rymer has made him realise that he's got to go for it from the word go, and the Norton number 23 is leading the 2 Kawasaki teamsters who have absolutely dominated 750cc racing, having won 2s all over the country in recent months in the UK, and these 3 now are pulling out ahead of Robert Dunlop, number 20. Oh, and that's Reynolds, got it all wrong there. So John Reynolds is really overcooking the job today, Steve. That's incredible.
Well, this isn't doing his championships any good. He'll be keen to get back on the track, but with all the traffic there, he just went in there too hot. He went in there really, really fast. Terry Rymer went out wide at that point, so He got offline, but that was just doing John Reynolds no good at all. He'd have been much better off sticking to a second spot, but he's back on the track. You see he's coming on the inside. He's got in there too fast, much too fast. He lost the front end, then lost the rear end, gets on the grass. At this point, there's nothing you can do but just keep it smooth. Don't put the brakes on, don't put the power, just cruise as slowly as you can. You saw him come back out onto the track.
John Reynolds' motocross experience stood him in good stead then, because he took to the grass at something in excess of 80 miles an hour and managed to keep it upright and managed to get it pulled up in a straight line. Robert Dunlop, number 20, Rob McElnea, number 1. Then it's Jamie Whitham, number 5 on the Suzuki. Then pushing hard, that's number 30, and that's Sean Emmett. So Sean Emmett from Camberley on the yellow bike behind Jamie Whitham, having adapted to the 750 very quickly. Sean Emmett rides the 600cc super sport machine with equal prowess, but my goodness me, he's going well here. He's in hot company too, mixing it with the very best in the country. Robert Dunlop in 4th place. Ahead of him, reigning champion Rob McElnea, whose title, and I have to be fair, is now slipping away from him. It doesn't look as though Rob McElnea is going to retain that number 1 plate for the 1993 season. He'll be carrying something less conspicuous, I think. But look at Morrison. Morrison, number 6, now closing on the number 23 Norton of Terry Rymer. Norton lead, Norton 3rd, and right in the middle, Kawasaki.
Once again, Brian Morrison doesn't actually have to be in front on the road. He's leading the race on aggregate. He's quite happy to sit behind Terry Rymer. He will win the 2nd leg here today by just doing that. But I'm not sure what went on. I think Ron Williams from the Norton team must have made some adjustments to Terry Rymer's bike. It's looking much better. They have a modified suspension system on it now, which they call the reactive suspension, and it's acting like a double spring effect so that the machine doesn't squat so much at the rear. And during the stoppage, there's a possibility that they made some adjustments on this bike. But Morrison's the man now. He's very, very close to Terry Rymer, but he won't pass him on the straight, I don't believe.
Now the computer here telling us that John Reynolds, number 3, is still motoring on down in 7th place. Well, if we can get that confirmed, we'll bring it to you. So number 3 Reynolds still going well, and if he's down in 7th, which he appears to, judging by the computer, then he is still in with a chance. Rymer then scorching through. Number 23, what a brilliant piece of luck, and I think one man's misfortune is another man's good fortune in motorcycle racing. And earlier on, Terry Rymer, who finished 6th in the British Grand Prix at his first attempt with a true 500cc Grand Prix bike, was quoted as saying, well, okay, maybe I'd have been happy with 9th, but I got 6th by virtue of the fact that 3 other people fell off. Steve, that's all in the game.
Very much so, and you have to cross the line to finish the race, and that's what it's all about. I mean, if you're easier on your machine and not as hard and more sympathetic with the machine, then you can sometimes finish the race, and that's what it's all about. You have to be consistent as well as being fast.
This little battle now between Robert Dunlop, number 20, and Jamie Whitham hotting up, because right with them too is number 46, Mark Farmer. There he is on the Roton. So Mark Farmer getting his act together well and truly. And I think that maybe we could well see the number 20 Norton go under the hammer of the 28-year-old.